Hayabusa. There was an unspoken challenge between Japanese motorcycle brands to create the world's fastest production bike. Kawasaki, Yamaha, Honda all would develop faster and faster renditions of their sport bike lineups. Suzuki, however, was determined to develop a purpose-built halo model, and it would be named the Hayabusa, a Japanese falcon that preyed on blackbirds in the wild. The Hayabusa's power plant could be summed up in 5 words: there's no replacement for displacement. It was a clean sheet design built purely to take the throne as the fastest bike in 1999 by being the most powerful, the torquiest, the most aerodynamic bike available. Today on Explain, we'll take a deep dive into the Hayabusa's engine and why it's the go-to choice to make ungodly amounts of power on 2 wheels. The 1980s were a time of rapid development for Japanese motorcycles. Performance was the most important metric to buyers. The UJMs, or Universal Japanese Motorcycle Design, lost its foothold to more niche sport bikes that were higher revving, lighter, more powerful, and ultimately faster.
Ninja from Kawasaki.
Kawasaki was privy to this market shift and introduced the GPZ 900R, marketed as the Ninja 900 in the States. It ditched the common 8-valve air-cooled inline-4 engines at the time for a liquid-cooled 16-valve inline-4 that produced 115 horsepower, and the Ninja could top out at 152 miles per hour, making it the fastest production bike at the time. The Ninja would fire the opening salvos in a war of horsepower and top speed between Japanese motorcycle manufacturers for the next decade and a half. Suzuki would answer with the GSXR 1100, utilizing an oil and air-cooled dual red cam inline-4, making 130 horsepower and topping out at 160 miles per hour. Yamaha would get a piece of the action with the FZR 1000 X-Up and its 20-valve engines with radical camshaft grinds, and horsepower increased to 145 and topped out at 167 miles per hour. The Kawasaki ZX-11 would take the throne in 1990 with a 176 mile per hour top speed and hold the title of world's fastest production bike for 5 years. Honda would dethrone Kawasaki with its CBR 1100 XX Blackbird, which was named after the Lockheed SR-71, which was the fastest air-breathing manned aircraft, and the 2-wheeled Blackbird could go 179 miles per hour. The top speed wars would have Suzuki develop a bike that didn't follow the conventional format and would even define its own class. The power plant for this flagship Suzuki initially was planned in the 900cc range, but subsequently increased to 1100cc derived from the GSXR 1100 and then to 1298cc's to meet performance goals. It retained the liquid-cooled dual-red cam 16-valve design of the 1100, but bigger 5.5mm larger cylinder bores, and the stroke was increased by 3mm. The twin-swirl combustion chamber design was carried over, but with larger intake valves and shallower 14-degree valve angle, which improved flow by providing a straighter flow path and reduced valve shrouding. The SRAD, or Suzuki Ram Air Direct Induction System, fed pressurized air into the intake, which the faster the air was moving, the more power the engine could produce. Even though it was fuel injected, it wasn't a technical marvel, but rather just bigger and could consume more air. Burning more fuel to that air equaled 175 crankshaft horsepower, which was around 10 more than the record-holding Blackbird. More than just power, the design of the Busa was critical for it to achieve the title world's fastest. The extensive aerodynamic testing in pursuit of having the lowest coefficient of drag led to the very unique silhouette of the Hayabusa. Even during the day, it was seen as grotesque in some regards, but it was a perfect example of form follows function. It was a 500-pound missile built to dethrone the CBR 1100 Blackbird, and it would do exactly that in 1999. The copper and silver Busas could reach a velocity of 194 miles per hour recorded with radar, which solidified it as the world's fastest motorcycle in 1999. This caught the eyes of not only the enthusiasts and the competition like Honda, Kawasaki, and Yamaha, but also regulators and politicians that called for an import ban against the high-speed motorcycles. Fears of an outbreak of illegal street racing as riders tried to break the 200-mile-per-hour barrier led to an unofficial agreement between manufacturers to limit speed to 300 kilometers an hour or 186 miles per hour. The next year, all 2000 model year sport bikes out of Japan were limited to 186 miles per hour and therefore ended the century-long fight of world's fastest motorcycle. Or so they thought. The war would live on, but in the underground. The Busa from the year 2000 on was factory limited to 186 miles per hour, unless you did the timing retard eliminator modification known as the TRE. It would fool the ECU to think that 6th gear was 5th gear, and since the 5th gear timing map wasn't restricted, it could muster all the way to redline and well past the 186 mile per hour limit to 194 miles per hour. The gentleman's agreement ironically caused what it tried to prevent: faster and faster bikes, and soon with the help of some positive manifold pressure, the Busa would become even more ridiculous and lethal. A great turbo engine starts with a great naturally aspirated engine. Think about it. Boost is a measurement of restriction where the engine can't consume as much air as a turbocharger is producing, therefore it stacks up, and this is what we see as positive manifold pressure. The less the restriction, meaning a better flowing intake and cylinder head, means more power at the same boost pressure level. The Busa cylinder head flowed excellent, and combined with the larger displacement could make 250 to 260 horsepower on 3 to 4 pounds of boost pressure. With supporting modifications and 8 pounds of boost, you could see 300 horsepower or more. The ease of which the Busa made power gave it the reputation of the best bike to build power with. The second generation Busa in 2008 would carry this reputation even further, with its more powerful engine which increased the stroke by 2mm to 65mm, boosting the overall displacement to 1340 cc's. It had revised pistons that were lighter with the compression ratio increasing to 12.5 to 1 from 11.0 to 1, and had more aggressive intake and exhaust camshaft lift and duration for enhanced flow. The factory horsepower bumped from 175 up to 197 horsepower and carried the Hayabusa reputation, and it would be the platform for the fastest ridden motorcycle ever. In 2011, Bill Warner would be the first person to exceed 300 miles per hour riding a sit-on motorcycle with a stunning 311.94 mile per hour run on a 1.5 mile runway. He was propelled by a turbocharged methanol-fueled Hayabusa race bike designed to put 1,000 horsepower to the pavement and survive. He would attempt to achieve 300 miles per hour in a shorter distance, and it would ultimately claim his life in a freak accident. The Busa engine would also find success in four-wheeled applications like the Radical Motorsport SR8, which held the all-time lap record in 2009 at the Nürburgring with a lap time of 6 minutes and 48 seconds. More than 20 years later, the Hayabusa still lives on in the third generation. Not much of a leap in engine performance, but even more refined with lighter pistons, revised camshaft grind for torque production, and less valve overlap for lower emissions. The exhaust camshaft lift and duration is higher, which in a turbo setting is very beneficial to spooling the turbo faster. The cylinder head combustion chamber is revised with less shrouding for better fuel mixing and flow characteristics. If you look at most off-the-shelf turbo camshafts, they normally have an aggressive exhaust duration and lift, just like the Gen 3 Busa. Even while down 7 horsepower compared to the Gen 2, it's an excellent building platform for power production, just like the venerable Gen 1 and Gen 2. It is clear that the era of huge displacement halo bikes is coming to an end. These extremely talented brutes just can't survive a world of stringent emission regulation and even faster lightweight leader bikes. It will be a sad day when they're gone forever, but I'm glad it happened in the first place.